I want to be a prosecutor because of situations like this.
You don't want to? You have to.
And this.
Is this your car?
No.
Bravo John Sam, 5455. Do you have ID on you?
No. Why am I getting pulled over?
Put your hands behind your back.
Excuse me?
Put your hands behind your back!
No!
Put your hands behind your back! Stop! 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 Hands behind your back!
And she's got you can tell she probably bumped her head on the ground when he took her to the ground.
And this.
I looked over to my sister and I said, did we just hear a bomb go off? And I mean, everyone just started freaking out, and there was a lot of people pushing us to just keep running. I heard a bunch of people saying, I don't know what's going on, let's just run.
And this too.
In 1986, Congress passed a sprawling criminal justice bill, a central feature of which was a mandatory sentencing disparity punishing crack violations much more harshly than those for powder cocaine.
You could have 500 grams of powder and still get probation. 5 grams of crack, you get 5 years mandatory minimum.
Let me explain. This last week, I asked you all on Instagram and YouTube which topic you wanted to see in today's video, and almost half of you picked this one out of the 5 options I presented. If you want to give your input on future videos, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram at LAA Law Student. I'm glad we picked this topic though, because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot between our crazy political climate and my job interviews for next summer. I get asked why I want to be a prosecutor constantly in my personal and professional life, and it's something that I need to remind myself of often when I'm wondering why in the world I'm putting myself through the disaster that is law school. From government-approved Fourth Amendment violations to mass incarceration, there is plenty to fix in the American justice system. Racial discrimination has been a problem from the start, and a steady increase in police power has left the most vulnerable at the whims of disproportionately applied abstract conceptions of fairness, justice, deterrence, rehabilitation, and punishment. At the same time, the very real threats of violence, evil people, and reckless disregard for human life and dignity loom large over our communities. As many problems as we have in the justice system, it is often our only defense and strategy at holding true criminals accountable for threatening and harming the people who are abiding by the laws that we have all agreed to simply by living in this country and its states. At least for now, our imperfect system is something we have to work within to do the best we can to protect our people and their liberties. That is why I want to be a prosecutor. Not because I think our government is perfectly designed or functional. Not because the innocent person always goes free and the guilty person faces punishment. Not because I think I have some superior capability to determine the truth and convince others of it. But because I want to uphold the law we have as best as it will allow me, while advocating for the changes it desperately needs. There are a few common criticisms I hear when I tell people I want to be a prosecutor. I believe everyone has the right to their own opinion and the freedom to express it, so in no way am I addressing these criticisms to say that they are unfounded or it's incorrect or improper to hold them. That being said, prosecutors are subject to many generalizations I just don't see as being true, particularly in my class of future lawyers who are intentionally socially conscious. I would love a world where my future job didn't need to exist, where people could live in peace and harmony, abiding by the same rules and source and law of morality. But unfortunately, we're still waiting for Jesus to come back. And until then, there are some people who do belong in cages. I believe it is a tiny fraction of the people we currently incarcerate. But on top of systemic racism issues that have led to mass incarceration in America, we also face a complete lack of alternative remedies for rehabilitation. With every conviction, we are faced with a near impossible decision between keeping a community safe through imprisonment or subjecting the other citizens of that community to the possible threat of repeated offenses by that defendant. Our system prioritizes innocent people, or at least purports to. This is likely going to be my most controversial take in an already controversial video, but in my opinion, the law is the law. Whether I or you think it should be the law is a completely separate matter. If there is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that someone broke the law, the standard for criminal trials, it doesn't matter much to me what that law is. Again, by living in America, we are conceding to live by the same terms as everyone else. Injustice happens when either the government or a citizen breaks one of those terms, and until they're changed, we need to live by them. From everything I've heard, this is pretty rare. Prosecutors can use their discretion to either pass the case to someone else or advocate for dropping the charges altogether. On the rare occasions that neither of these are an option, and I think I've heard maybe 2 stories of this happening in my 10 years of pursuing this career, prosecutors kind of just throw the case. It is already difficult to convince a jury to agree on anything, even in the most open and shut of cases. So the likelihood of a conviction by jury when even the prosecutor doesn't believe the evidence is minuscule, and thus I don't find this to be a convincing argument for why I shouldn't go into a prosecutor's office. While there are undoubtedly prosecutors out there for which this would be true, my studies and limited experience thus far have led me to believe it is more a problem of qualified immunity and interpolice policy than it is of prosecutorial misconduct or protection of police officers. We must first address the sources of the problem that prohibit prosecutors from going after police abuse. Only then will it be possible to see whether, when, and to what extent we need to hold prosecutors accountable to this issue as well. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, progressive prosecution is a movement going on right now that seeks to pursue community initiatives to prevent crime in the first place, make sure that defendants are given alternative remedies where possible other than incarceration. Progressive prosecutors are probably more likely to go after police abuse. And they also usually include some form of a conviction integrity unit, which reviews prior convictions to make sure that they were done properly and helps incarcerated individuals get out of jail when they were put there unconstitutionally or have since been found to be innocent. But to directly address this criticism, the fact is that prosecutors have an unfathomable amount of discretion. It is unparalleled anywhere else in the justice system. I simply don't see why we would only want people who don't think there is a problem with the system to be the ones wielding that kind of power. Ultimately, I want to be a prosecutor with a reputation for fairness, respectfulness, and morality. I always want to keep in mind the humanity and the consequences of a conviction for any person on the other side of a courtroom, remembering they too are part of the innocent community I will be sworn to protect and defend until I prove otherwise. There are more superficial reasons for my interest in courtroom litigation, like argumentation, but I didn't want to make that the basis of this video because even though that used to be a more major part of my motivation to get into this career, I would like to think that my interests, motivations, and passions have matured and expanded since I was a sophomore in high school. I want to do my part in promoting the right treatment of all people, both victims and defendants. This is something really important to me, and I'm nervous to make this video and put it up on the internet as an impression of my most personal passions for the world to see and criticize. I hope this video does justice to how I really feel about this issue. It can be a hard thing to put into words. I welcome you to answer my thoughts with your own, whether it's agreement or disagreement. All I ask is that you continue to keep this community and channel a place of respect for opinions different than your own. I will see you guys next week with another video. Until then, God bless.